Hey everybody, and welcome to the week 2 video update. So basically what I want to do in this video is very quickly kind of walk you through not only this week, but also what the exam is going to be like in case you haven't read up on it. So let's look at it. So if you go to Sensation and Perception, you've probably already been engaging with some of the week number 2 material. I'm just going to slip into student view so that way you can kind of see exactly what you're seeing. And so here for week 2 we have 3 new chapters, and as I kind of alluded to in the week 1 wrap up, these chapters are all bound by a singular theme, and that singular theme is essentially basic vision. So in other words, how do our eyes work? So in chapter 2, we're going to look at the anatomy of vision, and we're going to work our way up. So we're going to look at what light is. We're going to look at how rods and cones work. We're going to look at receptive fields. We're going to look at all these really basic building blocks to the eye. Chapter 3, this is honestly one of the most difficult chapters in the textbook in my opinion. Chapter 3 and Chapter 5 both are kind of tricky. Chapter 3 is tricky because it is, again, very, very nitty-gritty, detail-oriented information. Here we're looking at essentially how are we able to take this raw information about light that we that our eye picks up, and how do we convert that into something that our brain can understand. And so this is really kind of the first big step where perception starts taking place, because chapter 3 is all about contrast, and it's all about edge detection and noticing little pinpricks of light. So very, very, very basic kinds of and I say basic not in terms of like that it's easy or that it's simple, but that it is fundamental, that everything that vision kind of, that everything that vision is, everything that our visual systems can handle comes from these really tiny, functions. So that's chapter 3, and then chapter 4 is object perception or object recognition. It's all about how we are able to perceive what objects are. And so you'll see kind of with these 3 chapters and with the next 3 chapters that what we're doing is essentially kind of building up. So chapter 2, we're talking about the anatomy of the eye and what light is. Chapter 3, we're talking about how we're able to perceive that light. And then chapter 4 is how are we able to take all these features and combine them into something that we understand or that we can interpret. So we'll talk about face perception and things like that. And that's all that you'll need for the first exam. Week number 3, we're also going to be talking about more vision stuff. We're going to be talking about chapter 5 is color perception, which I mentioned is kind of one of the trickier chapters. We're going to be talking about chapter 6, which is all about depth perception. So how we perceive things in the environment in relation to one another and in relation to ourselves. And then we're going to skip over chapter 7 to get to chapter 8, which is about motion perception. So how are we able to perceive what kinds of things are moving, what direction they're moving, how quickly they're moving, things like that. So very quickly, let's take a look at the exams here. So for the exam, you'll already see that exam number 1 is open to you. You can take it right now if you want to, but basically it's 18 questions, 11 fill in the blank, 7 short answer questions, and you have 90 minutes. And I know 18 questions, 90 minutes, that sounds like a lot of time, and it can be a lot of time, but I can't emphasize this enough. Don't open the exam and then plan on looking up each question. If you do that, even if it's just to confirm and to check up on your answers, you'll run out of time, and that's a really scary feeling. So I definitely recommend cracking open the first exam study guide, looking through that, trying to answer as many questions as you can off the top of your head, and then anything that's blank, return back to with the book or with the PowerPoint, fleshing that stuff out. So in exam number 1, a lot of it is fill in the blank, but you'll see that short answer questions are worth more. The short answer questions, really, I'm looking for paragraph form. So basically, if I ask you, what are the two types of photoreceptors? You could just say rods and cones, right? But I'm looking for you to demonstrate what you know and show me how much you've learned. So feel free to expand upon that. Make it fancy, make it professional, make it a genuine answer. Make it like you are teaching me what you know. So say something like, the two photoreceptor types are rods and cones. Rods are used for scotopic vision, which means black and white, which means peripheral vision, and which means low spatial resolution, whereas cones are responsible for our photopic visual system, and that means that they are responsible for color perception. They're located primarily in the fovea. You get the idea. So expanding upon those things is always a great idea. I'm not going to take off points for people who give me too much information. It's better to do too much in this case than not enough. One thing that I wish went without saying, please don't plagiarize. If you do feel like you don't know the answer and so you jump onto Wikipedia, please let me know that you went to Wikipedia. Just, throw it down in, as like a reference point or something like that in that answer. In the past, I've had to give people Fs for whole exams because they went in and they copied or paraphrased something from Wikipedia that wasn't their own information, wasn't their own interpretation of this information, and used it as their own answer, which is not good. That doesn't show me that you have learned, this information. And if you don't cite it, it feels a little bit dishonest. And I know that not everybody's trying to pull one over. So that's why I say, when in doubt, just cite the information. That's a way better policy than trying to, not do that. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. But generally, if you at least are upfront about it and say hey, I got this information from this website or whatever, that's a way better decision than not. So that is the exam. That's going to be due Sunday before midnight. So you'll have most of this weekend to do that. And along with that, you'll have the normal chapter quizzes and discussions. And you've probably found by now that these discussions don't take up a lot of time, right? And so one thing that you will want to spend some time on is going to be these research articles. And so these research articles, our first research article, it's a little bit dense. I'm not going to say it's the most dense in the semester, but it is certainly kind of a lot of information and a lot of jargon for all of us. All of us, none of us are neuroscientists. I'm not a neuroscientist, you're not a neuroscientist. Maybe your aunt is a neuroscientist and she's able to help you with this stuff, but I'm not expecting everybody to know this information 100% backwards and forwards. I want you to do the best that you can. And so for this particular question, I'm asking that you pick 3 of these questions to answer. So, for example, what is the independent variable and dependent variable in this article? How did they manipulate the IV and record the DV? That sounds like a very simple kind of question, but this is one that a lot of people don't necessarily get correct whenever they're doing these papers. So, if you have any questions, if you're not sure what an independent variable is, if you want me to look over a first draft or anything like that, please shoot me an email and I'm happy to look over and give any kind of feedback for these things that you can. The whole purpose of, and actually before I talk a little bit more about that, if you are feeling any kind of hesitation or that you feel completely lost, there is a section of the textbook in Chapter 4 that talks about these kinds of articles, specifically talking about the quote-unquote grandmother cells. And so feel free to look at that for that summary as like a good starting point before you dive into it. Now, the reason why I assign these articles is because they are technical, because they are filled with jargon, and a lot of stuff that you're going to do in the workplace, whether that is in research or if you are doing counseling, you're going to come across lots of articles like this that are filled to the brim with technical information, and you have to kind of parse through it and pick out the most important key concepts, which is what you're doing in this paper right here. All right, so I feel like that's enough of me yammering on. I've gone on a little bit longer than I wanted to, but if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about the article and to answering any questions that you have about the study guide or any other thing in the class. All right, I will see you later. Bye.